we're going to take you to a really different place today, and that's where we're standing. We are still in Montana, and we have been staying in Dillon, is our RV park, and about 21 miles away is where we are. We are at the Bannack State Park.
Yeah, Bannack State Park.
And it is one of the very best ghost towns in the United States. We've been to a lot of them, and the buildings, you can all go in and they're still standing. It's not decrepit and bad, so you can really see a lot. And it's great history. It's a lot of fun, the things that happened here. Of course, the gold was discovered here first.
Yeah, in 1862 in Grasshopper Creek, right?
Yes.
It runs right by here. They discovered the gold. And so, yeah, we're in Bannack State Park in the old town of Bannack that they call now the Bannack Ghost Town.
Yeah, so we might run into some ghosts. I kind of doubt that.
Listen, if we run into some ghosts, we will definitely get an interview for you.
Yes.
You've been around here a long time. Hey, it's good to see you all. We are the Redhead and the Preacher, full-time RVers from Dallas, Texas, and we're so glad you're with us today. This is fun. We've got a beautiful day here, and just want to encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell so you'll be notified of all future videos. Okay, now do your best not to be too frightened as we take you through the Bannack Ghost Town.
After about a 20-mile drive from our RV park, we came to Bannack State Park. This was something that I was just kind of looking forward to, and it was a great big surprise.
Yeah, the first thing you come to is the Grasshopper Creek. That was where the gold was discovered in 1862, and this is the actual creek where the gold was discovered. They said it looked kind of yellow back then. There was so much gold. And
we looked, by the way.
Yeah.
We looked, and we found none.
Grasshopper Creek was named because there were so many grasshoppers in the area. And it was named Bannack for the Bannack Indians.
It turned out to be a good day, a better day than I thought. I'm not real big on ghost towns necessarily, but this turned out to be great. In fact, it was one of the great surprises of Montana for us.
Well, Bruce is here. You have to stop in the visitor center first, and we would recommend purchasing a book that has a map that has details of each of the homes in there for $2.
Well, let me say more than recommend, because I can't imagine going through this park without this book. It would just be like touring a bunch of old buildings. The history here is precise and exact, and we find out each building and what it was for and who lived there.
Yes, and Bannack was the first capital of Montana. And when it first started, there was only 400 people in that 1862 in the fall. And by the spring, there were over 3,000 people here.
And they were all looking, not for grasshoppers, but they were looking for gold.
Yes. And it was kind of a wild place. This is the hotel that we're going to take you inside.
So this originally was built in 1875 at a cost of $14,000, and it was the county courthouse. But the town of Bannack didn't last long because the gold ran out, and so this was abandoned until 1891, when it was purchased for $1,250 and turned into a plush hotel with all of the accommodations that time could afford. This is the kitchen of the hotel that was added after it was purchased. It's a very large and unusual room for a kitchen. It was filled with tables, and the adjoining room also was.
So one of the issues about the town is that it was lawless. And here's an interesting excerpt from a letter that a lady named Emily Meredith wrote. I don't know how many deaths have occurred this winter, but there would have been more if the drunken men could shoot straight. There are times when it is really unsafe to go through the main street. The bullets whiz around so much and no one thinks of punishing a man for shooting another. So, that's not a place you would have liked to have been like that time.
Pretty bad. They were all miners and looking for that gold.
Okay, here's something that's so good I need to read this. This is the town saloon. It was owned by men named Skinner and Plummer. They both had served time in San Quentin Penitentiary. This became the popular gathering place for the road agents of the Plumbers. Skinner left Bannack before the hanging of Plummer, but he was tracked down in Hellgate, near the present-day Missoula, and hanged for his alleged role as a spy. Both of them were in Quentin, and both of them left this world on the gallows.
So we need to tell you more about the guy named Plummer. He's such an interesting character.
More than interesting, he was a crook. He was
the sheriff also.
Yes, him and Skinner, Plummer and Skinner were owners of the Saloon. And in 1863, they started a gang named the Innocents.
Yeah, and they wore black handkerchiefs around their necks to identify themselves. That sounds a lot like gangs today.
Yeah, and as soon as they heard somebody had some gold, they would go out and rob them. And they committed about 102 murders. And so there was, the Vigilantes began in 63.
And the Vigilantes hung Plummer on the gallows that Plummer had made himself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And so they executed over 20 of the robber band at that time. Don't think they had pews like this back in the 1800s. Hey, and look who the preacher is today. Must be a guest speaker. Wouldn't take much for some preaching to be going on, right, Bruce? Are you ready to preach?
I got a sermon.
Here's just a private house. We're going to take you inside and let you see if you'd like to move in. I'm sure the rent would be really cheap. It's really nice and cool in here, though. There's where the stove was. And there's a step down to this room, so it must have been an add-on. And this was the kitchen. There's your cabinets. What could you ask for? And out here is a little outbuilding, probably with the outhouse hooked. Oh, maybe that's one of those had. Oh, there's the outhouse over there. We'll zoom in on that. I remember using an outhouse when I was a kid, going to my grandparents'. I hated going in there.
So this is a typical house that they may have inhabited during that time, and one of the things I was surprised at is how well the houses had been maintained. There's been a few changes to make them substantial, but they look pretty much like they did originally.
Yes, and you can see here the wood that they used was all hand hewn wood.
Yeah, so
and
it's
how
not
long that would take. And
Right.
they did not want to take time to build a home here for themselves, a building, because they wanted to be out in the gold fields mining. That's what they came here for. So they were pretty rough structures in the first place, but it's amazing that they're still standing.
Yeah, it is, and it's good to see it and see how they lived and understand that they had to have living quarters.
Yes, and you can see the walls were they just had the logs. This was a 2-story house here, but it was a very, very difficult way to live. Here's another house, and I have a feeling that this house has a cool breeze that flows through. I'm going to take you in and show you. How's that? You could get a great breeze coming through there. Actually, it was so cold there in the wintertime, they had to cover their heads with the blankets, and they were afraid they were going to get frostbite, and they would wake up with frost all over their blankets.
So I think we can conclude that life was difficult in this town, but those who were looking for gold thought it was worth it.
This is the city jail, and hey, there's somebody in there right now in the jail. He's probably waiting for the gallows to be hanged by the neck. Hey, that's Bruce. Schoolhouse. I'm going to go ahead and take you on the inside. And there's their little playground area. It is 2-story. Okay, let's go on inside, see if it looks like a real schoolhouse. Well, it's got the blackboard, and I don't think the desks look like that. I'm sure they were wooden benches, but you could have put a lot of kiddies in here, so it's cool. It's just remarkable how these buildings are still standing. It's absolutely wonderful.
So should you decide you want to come to Bannack State Park, there is good news because they have RV facilities right here in the park. Make your reservations ahead.
But we decided to stay in Dillon, the closest town, at the Countryside RV Park, about 20 miles away, and we really would highly recommend this park. We really enjoyed our stay there. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our trip to Bannack State Park and the old ghost town. It was absolutely wonderful. We really enjoyed it here. And you know,
It's a part of history for
Yes.
Montana. Very important to the state of Montana.
yes, and what could be any better? I mean, the sheriff was hung by the Vigilantes up on the hill, and
Yeah, the Vigilantes got together and hung the sheriff and his deputies on the
Yes.
gallows that the sheriff and his deputies had built.
yes, so it's got all of the things of a TV series, maybe, or a movie. But we really enjoyed it, and thank you for coming along with us.
We are glad you came along. It was fun for us, and we just want to thank you for coming and encourage you to subscribe and hit that bell so you'll be notified of future videos. Hey, may God bless each and every one of you, and remember, may God bless America.